Today I have a long-awaited comparison with the new 00017 versus the modern classic 0015M. Stick around. How's it going, guys? This is Cooper Greenberg at Alamo Music Center in San Antonio, Texas. You can find us online at alamomusic.com. And if you have not, please subscribe to the channel. We appreciate it. And like the videos, do all that stuff. So, if you saw our video earlier this year after NAMM, Martin has brought back or somewhat reintroduced the 17 series into the standard line. These are American-made guitars, All-Mahogany. There's a 00017 and a D17. Now let's talk about that one first because we did that video. We got those guitars right at launch. We're really excited about them, and we didn't happen to have a 0015 at the time to compare them. We sold through the 0017s and D17s that we had, and then, surprise, who could have foreseen it? It took us a really long time to get more 0017s in. And to all the people that called after that video and said, can I get a 0017? And we said, we don't know when we're going to get them. Sorry that it took so long, but we got them back now. So, this guitar looks eerily just like the guitar that I was holding moments ago, but let's talk about this one first because if I'm a betting man, the existence of this guitar means the eventual discontinuation of the other guitar. We'll talk about how I feel about that momentarily, but just to run through what we got going on here, this is mahogany top, back and sides, ebony bridge, ebony fingerboard, bone bridge pins. That's a new thing in the 2025 standard series. Either got ebony pins or bone pins. I think that's a great upgrade. And you know, you got diamonds and squares on the inlay. You got some open geared tuners with the rosewood head plate overlay, and you have what appears to me and the spec sheet a select hardwood neck. So yes, this is an all-mahogany guitar, and it could be all-mahogany. It could also be maybe a Spanish cedar neck. Select hardwood, just like everything else in the standard series. So that's the 0017. Now, how does it differ from this guy? Because this is really, as long as I've worked here, and I know prior to that, been one of the top sellers of Martin. The 0015M 15 series has, right now, and for the last little while, 3 guitars in it. Actually, 4 guitars. Maybe 5 guitars. There's a lot of guitars. I'm thinking about the 3 smaller body models. I'll talk about those. This is the 0015M. There's also the 0015SM, which is the 12 fret 00, and there is the 0015M. This has been the most popular by far in our store, and I think probably all over. And like I said, there's a 0015 Streetmaster. There's a D15M, a D15M Streetmaster. There's all that kind of stuff. So there's more 15s than I think about, but this is the king of the 15s. Now, why do I think it may be going away? Well, because this one exists, and also because they started rolling out the 15Es, which are made in Mexico, D15E, 0015E. We've talked about them. We've shown them to you on the channel. That's not a new surprise. I think we've known for a little bit that this guitar might be going away, even though I think that's a mistake. But let me talk about this for just a second. The 0015M is also an all-mahogany guitar, and it is also made in the US of A. But it's kind of started that maybe transition a little bit when they went from a hard shell case to a gig bag. So now this guitar comes with a gig bag, and there's a couple things in comparison to what I told you about the 0017 that make this guitar a little funky. So one, this is a rosewood bridge, rosewood fingerboard. Ain't nothing wrong with that. That's just how this guitar has been made. And the big difference to me is what's going on with the construction, the actual bones of the guitar itself. So this has non-scalloped bracing in it, and the braces are 5/16 of an inch, as opposed to the 0017, which has golden era scallop bracing, which is new for the 2025 standard series refresh. So you got scallop bracing in the golden era fashion, and you got 1/4 inch bracing. So a little bit lighter bracing, definitely lighter because it's scalloped. So What that means to me is that you've already got a hardwood top. This is already going to be pretty compressed and warm sounding on both of these guitars, but on the 0017, it's lighter bracing, it's golden era, it's going to breathe a little bit more, so maybe that gives you a little bit more volume on that guitar. Maybe that just gives you a little bit more push. And I do think, back to the bridge and fingerboard material, I think most people would prefer ebony bridge and fingerboard. I think most people would prefer golden arrow scallop bracing. And the weirdest part about this guitar is the fact that, and this is not something new, we've talked about this before, a lot of people have talked about this, this is marketed as a triple O body, but it does have OM or dreadnought scale length. So this guitar is 25.4 inch scale length with a 1 11/16 inch nut. This guitar is true triple O scale length, which would be 24.9 inches, a little bit shorter than this guitar, and this is 1 3/4 inch nut width. Now, I think when this guitar came out, a lot of people are like, oh, they're just making the same exact guitar and they're going to make it more expensive and they're going to get rid of this one. That's not entirely false. This is more expensive than this guitar, but if you break down all the things that I just said, the bracing, the scale length, the nut width, the fingerboard and bridge material, even the tuners, they're both open gear tuners, but these swapped over to these black plastic buttons last year or the year before. These are Butterbean style Grover open geared tuners. I think basically every single element of this guitar is more suited for somebody that is playing Martin guitars. Scallop bracing, golden era, lighter, quarter inch bracing, scalloped, golden era with ebony. The scale length that you would expect for a triple O if you're playing a 0018 or playing the, 0028, whatever. That's the scale length you're used to. A little bit shorter than this one, which is actually OM scale length, even though they call it a triple O. And the nut width, I find more people that play Martins prefer 1 3/4 versus 1 11/16. And finally, the biggest deal is this one has an angled nut. All right? It's an angled nut. There you go. I will say one more thing in playing these next to each other, which I have not since this one came out. They're both satin guitars. They're both satin necks. This one feels a little bit more open pore than this one, which feels like just a really smooth, full pore satin finish that feels exactly like the body. I just think that's a nicer touch. It really doesn't matter to me that much, but if you are getting into the details of these guitars and you are trying to choose between them, it's worth knowing that this one also comes with a hard shell case. This one comes with a gig bag. This one comes with the same hard shell case that you would get on a 0018, which is a nice case. And this one comes with the same gig bag that you get with the Road Series, which are nice gig bags. But for my money, with an American-made all-solid wood guitar, I'd like a hard shell case. Now, the big deal is sound and playability. I played this one first, and I'm playing on 1 3/4 inch nuts. So I will say switching over to this one, it was a little bit of a adjustment, and I think that probably comes through with the playing. I promise you that I wasn't purposefully trying to play worse on this guitar, but it is a little bit of a shift. And one new thing on the new standard series is that the fingerboards are a little bit thinner. That's just a thing. But this is the Golden Era modified low oval neck, and this is the pre-existing modified low oval neck, but it's got a little bit thicker of a fingerboard, so this one feels a little bit faster, but a little bit wider on the nut width, which I think is suited to my playing a little bit better. However, sound-wise, they both sound great. So take a listen. I'll tell you my thoughts on the other side. There you go. There you have it. That's the scoop. This is the 0017. If you need a very quick identifier based on you're looking at them in the store and you want to know without looking inside, yes, you're going to get the nickel open geared Grovers. You can look at the nut, which I will tell you that a lot of times that's become our signal in the store. If somebody's like, is that one of the new 2025s? That's a really quick and easy way to look. And also, this is very obviously ebony versus the other one, which is obviously rosewood. So visual cues there, but feel cues. This one definitely, to me, has the neck that I would prefer on this guitar and the bracing that I would prefer on this guitar. Because like I said, All-Mahogany, you're going to get a ton of mid-range, a ton of warmth. You have a hardwood top. It's nice to have the bracing more suited towards bringing out a little bit more airiness, a little freshness in the sound, a little bit more volume, because it's going to be lighter and it's going to let the top move a little bit easier. Now, here's my thing. I totally understand why Martin would bring this guitar in the lineup and the Dreadnought in the 17 series, because historically that's the Martin All-Mahogany kind of thing. And I like that this whole refresh has been geared towards old school with modern upgrades, but all those modern upgrades are facing towards the golden era kind of thing. I think that's just a good move for Martin. So there is probably a possibility in the world where they discussed, we're going to put this guitar out, but this is going to become the 0015M. We're going to retire that one. But I don't think, I'm gesturing over here because the guitar is on a stand over here. I'm not just looking off into the abyss. There's still a place for the 0015M as it stands now. One, it's more affordable. I think there's plenty of people that would like a 1 11/16 nut versus 1 3/4, although I think this fits me better. Somebody might prefer that. I do think it's funky to have longer scale length, narrower nut versus shorter scale length, wider nut, but both of those work together to make this, I think, a little bit more versatile of a guitar, easier to play, and I dig it. What I would say, my recommendation to Martin, if you were watching this, they should take this format and these materials, this build, and I would still like to see a maybe 0017 SM with a 12 fret version or a smaller body version. I think a 0017 or even a single 017 would be pretty neat. But I do think this is the right direction to go for this guitar. It's not like double the price of the 15, but this is right now $22.99, so you are pushing over $2,000 to get an All-Mahogany guitar. But I just think overall, in general, this is a better guitar. Mainly coming down to the materials and what they're doing with the bracing. But I just think, for me, it played easier. I think it sounded a little more alive. But I'd like to hear what you think. If you are, if I'm a betting man, I think that one's going away. So if you like the narrower nut, longer scale length, and you don't mind a gig bag, I would recommend find one now. As of right now, we're still ordering, we're still getting them, but there is now the other option, which is the 0015E, made in Mexico, but with a little bit closer to this type setup with the scale length and nut width and onboard electronics. I think that's a good value guitar. And if there comes a time when we have maybe a 0010, 0015E, 0015M, and a 0017, I think that's a worthy comparison, because when you go made in Mexico with Martin, you can get down to, I think under the $1,000 mark still and get something that's going to be a very similar profile. So they do have options all the way up. I would say not just because this is the most expensive option with that sort of build of the all-mahogany or at least mahogany top. I think this is the best sounding and playing guitar with the most overall value, as it is, what do Martin players want? I think this is what they would want most, but you are going to pay for it. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that 15M. And all the way down the line, you can get the sound that you want in your budget. They are still doing that, but who knows what's going to happen. I think they're setting this one up to be around for the foreseeable future. So keep that in mind. If you like one of the other ones, maybe worth making your call now before things go into limbo, jeopardy, going away time. So Tell me what you think. Could you hear a sound difference between them? Do you prefer this neck, this nut width, or that one? I think this is a great buy. I think the other one's a great buy. A lot of people probably already have the 0015M, so if you are looking to upgrade, that is a possibility as well. But All-Mahogany Martin, pretty hard to go wrong. Let me know what you think, and if you want to see the in-depth specs on these, you can go to our website, alamomusic.com. I'll see you there. You can click on my face over in the right-hand corner, send us a message. It may go to me, it may go to somebody else, but I'm always watching. So thank you for watching, and we will see you next time.